Good morning. It's great to be with you. And Godfrey, I'm not here to collect any loans. That's the good news. Thank you to Gila River for hosting us. Thanks so much to Godfrey for the invitation to be here. It is an honor. To Governor Lewis, who I got to meet last year when I was doing some work out here at Gila River. We really do appreciate the chance to be with you and talk a little bit about what's going on at the United States Department of Agriculture and at the Rural Utility Service where I'm the administrator. Before I get started, I just want to make sure you know, here's what's going to happen. I'm going to try to speak for a few minutes, make sure you know what's going on. I want to answer just a few questions, and then I'm going to turn it over to Brian Smith, who's our branch chief, to give a little bit of a presentation at the end. And as you heard earlier, we have some general field representatives who are the people from USDA that are out in the field every day talking to our borrowers, to the people who are our customers. They have their own room and would love to meet with you as you're here. So last year, I was in Oklahoma and awarding a grant to the Pawnee Nation. And while I was there, I got to meet a man named Jimmy. And Jimmy had told me that he went back to school because he was telling his teenage kids that they had to go to college. And they were giving him grief because he had never graduated from college. So he decided to go back. And he was about to graduate in his last semester when COVID hit. And because Jimmy didn't have any kind of internet connection, he had to drop out of school again, right as he was at his last semester. And it took him another year to graduate from college. And I talked to him a little bit about what that grant was going to mean for him and for the people at Pawnee Nation. And it was amazing to hear the difference that he thought it would make in his life and what it was going to do for him and his children. So here's the good news. President Biden has made a pledge that every American will have access to affordable, reliable, high-speed internet. And as somebody who works on this every day, each word in that is important, and so I'm going to say it again. Every American will have access to affordable, reliable, high-speed internet. And that means throughout Indian country, everywhere in Arizona where we are today, the pledge is that, and what I work on every day and have the good fortune to be doing, is making sure that we fulfill that. And the good news is that this is one of the rare bipartisan issues in Washington, D.C. And so last year, Congress put $65 billion. I'm pretty new to the federal government. I'm not used to saying billion, but I'm trying to get used to it now. $65 billion into fulfilling that pledge. So this is an extraordinary opportunity for the people in this room. And at the end of this, I truly suspect that we are going to fulfill what that mission is. I'm at the United States Department of Agriculture, the Rural Utility Service. To give you a little bit of an idea, the Rural Utility Service has 3 divisions: electricity, water, and telecommunications. We were established 90 years ago when President Roosevelt decided that we were going to electrify America. That was how we started. And you think about the parallels to today, where we're trying to provide internet to everybody as opposed to electricity, and that is at the core of our mission. We have several $billion through the bipartisan infrastructure law, but also year-over-year funding to accomplish that purpose. And we have so far given out grants to, I know, a number of tribes in this room, including Gila River, Tohono O'odham, and to Navajo Tribal Utility. Again, about $750 million so far just to tribes. And this is part of a bigger initiative that we all have. I'm proud because I know President Biden has been so focused on both of these issues. How do we help Indian country? How do we make sure that we provide internet to every single individual in this country? And so it's great to be at the intersection of those. We work a lot. I know next you're going to hear from Adam from NTTA. Their team is amazing in trying to help Indian country. Tomorrow, I believe you're going to hear from Danae at the White House. There are so many people focused on that. But don't overlook the opportunities that we have at USDA. We have the Reconnect funding, which on our most recent round, we offered $1.1 billion to make sure that we could connect people. That we got $4.3 billion worth of requests back. Just yesterday, we opened up a new round of Community Connect funding. Community Connect funding is for places that have essentially no connectivity. And those are people who have less than 10 download speed and 1 upload. If you live or have sections of your area that need that kind of funding, this is open right now. Please take a look at it and apply. And the goal, of course, is always to make sure that we are providing the things that you need, and that is infrastructure that is made for 2023 and beyond. We have to banish "it's good enough" from our vocabulary. And too often when it comes to infrastructure in rural America, in Indian country, you hear people say, well, that's good enough. The good news for us is that every one of the connections that we build through USDA is a minimum of 100 download speed and 100 upload speed. A minimum of 100 download speed and 100 upload speed. The second piece that is so great for us is that we have people throughout America who are able to work with you in your community. So I talked about our general field representatives. We have people throughout America there. We have our state director, Charlene Fernandez. She's the state director for Arizona. She's phenomenal. We're lucky to have her, but there are people all throughout the country. And so if you want to know how things work and how you can take advantage of our funding, again, in any of those areas, telecom, water, or electric, but for now, let's talk about telecom, please make sure that you're reaching out to them. In the long run, to me, this is about a bunch of things. Let me start with things that I think are applicable to every community. So I come from local government. I was the mayor of Chattanooga, Tennessee. And we were the first community to build universal fiber to every single home and business in our entire area, 600 square miles. And I saw what a difference it made for my hometown. We had one of the highest wage growths in the country. And in 2020, Forbes said we'd be the #1 place in America for new jobs. That's what technology and fiber can do with great backing from local people like yourselves. But it's not just about that. It's also about quality of life. Actually, when I was at Gila River last year, I heard the story of Anna, and she was 87 years old. And during COVID, she had gotten shut in to her house. And she wanted to learn internet skills and to get connected because she was a great quilter. And she wanted to sell her quilts online and just feel more connected and purposeful in the world. This is what it looks like in 2023 to have purpose and meaning and opportunity. You have to have an internet connection. But more than that, in Indian country, we have issues of sovereignty. If you don't have great infrastructure, it's hard for you to be in control of your own lands and your own tribes. And so getting ahead of this and making sure that you're building out your networks allows you to assert greater sovereignty throughout your areas. And then finally, and I heard this throughout my time last year, working with different tribes across the country, as you see so much dispersion across America, and you want to make sure that we're passing on from elders to younger tribal members the culture and the language and the things that are important in Indian country. Now the internet is another way to do that. And for all of us, we want to make sure that that happens. So on behalf of the Rural Utility Service, I want to say thanks for your leadership throughout your communities, throughout your areas. It is so important for the people that you serve and the work that you do. But for me, right now at the federal level, I'm also here to tell you This is a moment. Don't lose sight of how much funding is available throughout the federal government across all these different initiatives, because we are dead set on fulfilling the president's pledge. Every American will have access to affordable, reliable, high-speed internet. Thank you so much. I'm happy to answer some questions.
Sorry, guys. Do you have any questions for Andy? Anybody from the audience? There's one in the back. Do we have a mic to take out to?
If you can chat it, I can probably hear it. Good. So is there some issue? It's very difficult for tribes that have no experience in this area to try to do the project. 5 to 6 different programs, all with restricted reporting requirements that were not there from the standpoint of this the first time. So my question is, are we going to try to have some type of because don't have a 100-person tribe in high desert in the back. So that we can tackle this as a project and not a series of buckets. At the end of it, it's like right. So just to make sure that everybody heard this, the question was about all these different buckets and you're just trying to do a project. And this is a very good question, one that I know that we hear a lot. And the one you said the alphabet soup. You said almost all of them. Let me add FCC to your alphabet soup. If there's one thing I've learned in Washington D.C. in my short time there, it's that they love an acronym. Like if the Bill of Rights were done today, they would call it the BOR. This is very challenging because with each of those projects that you mentioned, if you get multiple grants, as you noted, there are also all these different reporting requirements, and that requires staff people. And believe me, as I said, I come from local government. I know the pain that it takes and how much capacity there is to write multiple grants, to try to administer multiple grants, to make sure that you're not violating any of the different provisions. So I'll give you the bad news first, and then I'm going to try to give you the good news. The bad news is that some of this really is structural. That is very hard for us to do anything about because, at least from my office now in Washington, there's this little building down the street that has a big dome on it called the Capitol. They tell us when they pass the laws and they give us the money, they put a bunch of different restrictions on the way that we can use the funding and how we can use it and what we have to do with it. And that makes it just really hard for us to coordinate. That's those are the facts. And I wish I could tell you something different. But if you just look at even rural utility service funding, I said yesterday we opened a new round of Community Connect. That is different from our signature program, which is Reconnect. Reconnect is where we've given out, as I was talking about, $750 million to tribes and roughly $2.5 billion in the last 2 years. They're different pieces for each of those for us, and that makes it hard for us to administer as well as for y'all. And so we run into this a lot, and that is bad news, and I just want to be honest with people about that. Here's the good news. Two really pieces of good news, and that is, first piece of good news is there is so much money out there. That's the problem that you want to have. It's better to have the problem of we have too many pots of money that we're working through and not enough capacity than the other way around. And the second piece is that we try very, very hard to coordinate our funding so that we can make sure that we only fund projects in the right places and that we deconflict. So in other words, one of the biggest issues for us right now is that NTTA might be making an award in one area. You've also applied for the same area through us, and we have to make sure that those places don't overlap. So we have a much more thorough process now to do that and to make sure that you get one award for as much of the project as possible. And that way you can build it out. But still, as I said, if you do a Reconnect award and then you do a middle mile award, there's always going to be those two different pots of money. And because of the way that the structure works, you're just going to have some different requirements. But we'll do everything that we can to make it as easy on you as possible, knowing our limitations. So thanks for the question.
All right, any more questions? Well, I got one. You had a key word there just a second ago that talked about overlap. What is overlap? So if NTIA awards me so many $1 million and then all of a sudden there's an overlap condition, how do we fix that? I mean, what's going on here? Somebody cries foul and say, hey, those guys are already served by this other grant or loan or whatever's going on. How do we fix that? At the end of the day, I want to make sure any country gets every broadband house connected to make sure that they're connected. And we don't want to slow down anything that's going on. So if there is an overlap condition, where do we go and who do I talk to?
I would rather have easy questions, Godfrey. We don't need to have hard questions. So this is, you talk to us, okay? You talk to Adam, you talk to me, you talk to us, and this is an issue for us to work out because we know that this is not supposed to be your burden. It really isn't. It's supposed to be ours, and we're under an obligation to make sure that we do everything possible to deconflict. And this is critical for us because Congress is looking at this very heavily. The administration throughout wants to make sure that we use every dollar effectively. And I want Indian country to get every dollar as well. But we are realistic. Adam and the NTIA team have $3 billion. That's an amazing amount of money just for tribal. We have our funding. We have what we call SUTA authority, which is substantially underserved tribal authority. That allows us to move up trust areas to a higher place and change some rules for them. That gives huge advantage when you apply to us for these awards. Those are all great opportunities for you. But in the long run, it is going to cause issues, and you are going to have to rely on us. So don't be scared off by this. I know that it is challenging, but put the burden on us as much as possible to take care of this.
Yes. Any other questions before Andy goes off? All right, Andy, I appreciate you being here. Thank you so much.